In this video, I'll be talking about 9-3, which is a problem-solving lesson called Writing to Explain. In this lesson, you'll be doing some estimating with fractions using pictures. So they might give you a picture and ask you what fraction of the picture is shaded in, or something along those lines. So a few things that you can do to help you figure out about how much of this shape here that is shaded in blue is to either think about benchmark fractions, which are easy fractions such as 1/2, 1/4, or 1/3, maybe 3/4. Those easy fractions that we use a lot are our benchmark fractions. And what you can do is think about how the portion of the picture that you are thinking about compares to one of those benchmark fractions. In this example, the benchmark fraction that I'm thinking of when I see this problem is 1/2. 1/2 would be about right here, and this is a little bit bigger than that, but I could still say that it's pretty close to 1/2. So use those benchmark fractions that are easy for you and see if you can find one that it's close to. In this case, what I might say is that this blue shaded portion is about 1/2, because if I split it into two equal pieces, about one of the two pieces is shaded. Let's look at another example. Now this one, looking at it right off the bat, I'm not really sure exactly what benchmark fraction I could relate this to. So another strategy, instead of finding a benchmark fraction that the shaded part is close to, another strategy is to divide the whole picture into even pieces. So I'm going to use this part here as kind of my reference, and I'm going to divide this picture into pieces that are all about that size, and then I'm going to see how many pieces are shaded in out of the total amount of pieces. Remember, a fraction is a part out of a whole. So in this case, in all, I have 4, 5 pieces, and about 4 are shaded in. Now, are those perfectly even pieces? No, but they're about even, and this is just an estimate, so that's okay. In my explanation, to have a thorough and very clear explanation, what I might say is if you divide the shape into 5 almost even pieces, 4 out of 5 are shaded in. That would be an awesome explanation that would really cover why you would say that this purple part is about 4/5. Sometimes you might be given something other than just a square or a circle shaded in. In this case, this is a pie graph. Let's say that the question asked you about what portion or fraction of the people take the bus. So we're looking at this orange part here. There are a couple ways that I could solve this problem. One way, like the first example I showed you, is to think about benchmark fractions. When I look at this picture, I notice that the orange part is bigger than 1/4, because if I kind of drew the line from cars over, this part right here would be 1/4. But it's bigger than 1/4, but I also see that it's less than 1/2. So a benchmark fraction that I know that is bigger than 1/4 and less than 1/2 is 1/3. So here I used benchmark fractions to find something smaller than my area and bigger than my area, and then made a guess right in between those two benchmark fractions, 1/4 and 1/2, that would make sense. Another thing that I could do is thinking back to this last example that I did, and I could draw on my shape some different lines that would help me get a better estimation of how much is shaded in. So I notice if I cut it into fourths, it kind of looks like about half of this part is orange. So if I cut every every fourth into halves, I would have 8 pieces. Think about like how they cut a pizza at many pizza places. Okay. And the yellow portion would be about this much, about 1, 2, 3 of those slices shaded in. So it's about 3 out of 8. So 1/3 would be a good guess, or 3/8 would be a good guess. All you need to do is explain in words thoroughly how you got your answer. So if I wanted to explain 1/4, I would say that the orange portion, or the bus riders portion, is bigger than 1/4, but less than 1/2, so it's about 1/3. So sandwiching it in between those two benchmark fractions is an easy and great way to come up with a good estimate. If I wanted to explain this estimate of 3/8, I could say if I divided this pie chart into 8 equal pieces, the orange portion, the bus riders, take up about 3 of the 8 pieces. That would be another great way to explain it. Either of those would be acceptable. There are more answers than this you could have, but those are 2 possible answers. Here's the last example I'm going to show you. This is a baseball diamond. That part has been covered up, or the infield at least, with a tarp. Maybe it was about to rain that day or something. If our question asked us about how much of the field does the tarp take up, there's a couple ways I could answer it. I could say that it looks, just kind of from the looks of it, like about 1/4. Or I could say it is a little bit bigger than 1/4, but it's definitely less than 1/2. So again, maybe I could say 1/3. So 1/3 or 1/4 would be a good estimate using those benchmark fractions. What I could also do is try and divide the space up into even pieces. What I always try and do is kind of find a nice little chunk that is easy to kind of go off of as a size reference. So if you look at this little piece here, it looks like I could go like this. Then if I split each of these parts over there, it looks like I have about even pieces. And out of my 6 even pieces, or about even pieces, 2 are shaded in. We learned in our lesson about simplest form that this is the same as 1/3. So just by eyeballing it over here, I got something really close to that with 1/4 and exactly spot on with 1/3. So if you're good at eyeballing and using those benchmark fractions, that's one great way to estimate these areas and spaces. But if you like to split it up into about even pieces, that would be another great way as well. If I were to explain this way, I would maybe say I split the field up into 6 portions that were about even, and the tarp took up 2 of the 6 pieces. So it's 2/6 or 1/3 of the field. I hope that this is making sense to you guys. Basically, use what you know about benchmark fractions like 1/4, 1/2, 1/3, 3/4 to help you make your estimate, or draw on the picture and split it up into pieces that are about even sized across the picture and see how much of that your pieces that you're looking at take up. I want you to try this one and bring your answer with you tomorrow. I want to know about how much of the garden does the lettuce take up. I know you can't draw on this, but you might be able to kind of recreate it as best you can on a piece of paper and use that to help you, or just eyeball it using what you know about benchmark fractions. On your sheet, you need to have your estimate and an explanation as to how you came up with that estimate. Try your best, and we'll talk tomorrow about writing good explanations. Good luck!